Yes, geezers. Quantum Tunnel is the new featured location in Marvel Snap. It's going to be showing up in 40% of games for the next 48 hours. When you play a card here, swap it with a card in your deck. This is a very exciting location, and it is basically Lockjaw, the location. So all decks which you'd usually play with Lockjaw, those styles of decks where you have big cards to cheat out with Quantum Tunnel and cheap cards to play into Quantum Tunnel are going to be very important. Also worth mentioning though, and worth bearing in mind, that your opponent is also going to have essentially a Lockjaw in this location. So I think particularly cards which can move are going to be quite useful, so that you have that option of having points in there but still moving them out. Nightcrawler and Vision are two cards I absolutely love in particular. I also think that you should really be putting America Chavez in virtually every one of your decks for this featured location. The reason for this is that she cannot be drawn until turn 6, and a lot of the time you're just going to thin her from your deck. What this is doing is really turning your deck into an 11 card deck in a lot of situations, and it's just going to mean that your deck is a lot more consistent and you're going to be finding the cards that you want early. The first deck is just a very standard looking Lockjaw deck. I think if you have Shuri is a serious consideration in this one instead of either Dracula or Jubilee. But just playing all the usual cards you would with Lockjaw. Of course, you've got the Wasp to make things very cheap. Nightcrawler also a serious consideration in this one as well. But you've got the Thor, the Jane Foster. You definitely don't have to go for this package. If you wanted to get rid of Jane Foster, Thor, you could put Nightcrawler in there, a few more big cards. I know lots of people like Doctor Doom. I think Doctor Doom is going to be a little bit worse with Quantum Tunnel in your Lockjaw decks because you have essentially two Lockjaw lanes. But I think Jane Foster should be very good. Lots of cheap cards to recycle and cheat out. Big stats indeed. I think Jubilee also is a card you might want to consider not playing with Quantum Tunnel. If I had Shuri access, I would be playing Shuri in this list instead. I do have Shuri access, but of course a lot of people don't. So I just wanted to go for the most bare bones version. Up next we have a Quake version of this. This is just a spicy one that my chat was discussing earlier. Quake, if you're not familiar, you play her on the middle location and swap the positions of each location. So if you can get an early lead into Quantum Tunnel, you could then Quake and change Quantum Tunnel to a different location and then get a lead there. What that's going to mean is you would get an easy location win. If your opponent isn't playing into Quantum Tunnel early, they might just be sitting and waiting to do it later on. You cheat out your Giganto, your Infinite, your Chavez. Suddenly, surprise Quake comes through and Quantum Tunnel is in a different place, meaning it's very difficult for your opponent to win the original Quantum Tunnel where you've got all those big stats. Okay, couple more decks. We have Thanos. Thanos is, I think, one of the best decks in the meta right now, and I think this is the deck to play for this featured location. The main consideration for this one is armor instead of Okoye. Armor, of course, is going to be protecting you against Death Wave decks, although I'm not sure that they'll be too popular come the second day of Quantum Tunnel. Certainly on the first day when people are still adjusting to the featured location, you should be seeing quite a lot still, but Okoye is a very valuable card, particularly with Quantum Tunnel where you're cheating out even more cards. I think Thanos is just great in general. You've got the Leech, the Arrow. I love Storm myself in these decks, and she's also quite interesting with Quantum Tunnel because you could storm the Quantum Tunnel lane if you get an early lead, making it difficult for your opponent. Spider-Man's in there because it's great into the Lockjaw lane, so therefore it's going to be good into the Quantum Tunnel lane as well. Main thing that you just want to make sure you are doing still is getting your Blue Marvel, Kazar, your Arrow down into locations where they're not going to be swapped out. But this should just be a very strong deck. You might also want to consider replacing the M'Baku with Quantum Tunnel for something bigger like an Infinite or whatever else. You've got a few options there, but I think Thanos should be one of the best decks going. Finally, last but not least, a discard deck, because lots of discards are going to be more points on Morbius. And yeah, this one is a Hela version with Lockjaw as well. You can really go about this any way you like. This Hela could easily be replaced by a Dracula. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Dracula in the lists with Lockjaw and Apocalypse, because if you get your Apocalypse out off Lockjaw, then the Dracula also often has no target. So with Quantum Tunnel being around, I think that's even more the case. Swarm, of course, a very good card to just be putting in for free, but you really want to just be trying to discard Swarm as many times as you can. If you have Helicarrier, I think Helicarrier is a great replacement for Hela here. Hela's just an opportunity card. If you discard, for example, your Blade or your Gambit, then you can just bring them back later on with Hela, and you can, of course, find her off of the Lockjaw lane. So she's a pretty interesting card, but not necessarily a must-have. You can go all sorts of different ways. That is the Quantum Tunnel featured location. Pretty much it's just Lockjaw, the featured location. I think Thanos is the top don for this one. You also might want to just consider some things like Storm and those general kind of control decks. So Silver Surfer decks with Storm could be a serious option. But if it was me, Thanos is the top dog. If I didn't have Thanos, I would just be looking at playing some kind of stock Lockjaw deck like this, maybe with a Nightcrawler added in. I think Jubilee again is mainly the main one to consider getting rid of. But of course, if lots of people are playing big tall cards, you also might want to consider things such as Shang-Chi. That can really do a good job on a lot of these decks. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did, and subscribe for more. See you soon.